laughing now! That's right! It's another Tuesday, which means it's time for another in real life video. I originally wasn't thinking of doing one today because, apologies, maybe you can already tell, or you've been keeping up with videos as they've been coming out of the Let's Plays. But in the event that perhaps you only watch the IRL videos, I have a bit of a cold, right? But thankfully, seems like I'm progressing through it pretty well enough. But like I said, feeling better, especially with the news of the Oblivion Remaster being 100% real, right? We will be talking in depth, maybe not in depth, we will be talking about it a lot here. So if you want to sort of save yourself for any sort of official reveal or like prevent or like keep yourself from any discussion of that sort, I suppose just let it be said here, I'm excited for it, right? We're gonna play it on the channel, absolutely. Anyway, let's get into it. So, as we had talked about before, about sort of expectations for the remake, right? There's been sort of mounting talk about whether or not the remake is real, or the remaster, I suppose we should be calling it now. Whether or not the remaster is real. There's been like a growing faction of people who were non-believers. They were not believing the truth, the gospel of Akatosh, that indeed Oblivion would be returning, right? That the marbled, the obsidian jaws of Oblivion would open once more. But it's all true, right? It's all coming back, dating back to those leaked court documents, like myself and many others, right? Let's get that straight. A lot of people referring back to those leaked court documents when Microsoft bought Bethesda, not just BGS, but Bethesda as a whole, and it sort of had their release schedule. Obviously, there was a global pandemic. Video games are just difficult to make and make on time, so a lot of the time frames on there were off, and of course some projects would get moved forward or would get canceled even. So it was mostly a question of, well, we know that they had designs for an Oblivion remaster, but did it get canceled? As it turns out, it definitely didn't, right? As it turns out, it is imminent. Folks like as well, I very much enjoy Jeff Grubb, personally, and I would recommend him. I think Jeff Grubb is a solid dude. I like to listen to what he has to say every now and again. He very obviously, I don't think he has a 100% perfect track record, but when it comes to stuff like this, you know, stuff leaking, as it were, he's got a pretty good track record to the point where, yeah, he definitely has like real sources of some sort, right? And he has like the integrity to report on them in some capacity and choose what not to report if it's sort of going to, I don't know, what would you say, like screw over the work of a development studio or whatever. But very much he was corroborating that his sources were telling him all of this. And thus I was a believer, right? I sort of held firm to the idea that, yeah, this is a real deal. It's coming. I think a lot of this is a reminder, to me at least, of the time when Fallout 4 was first, well, even before Fallout 4 came out, wherein you kind of really need to know what's what and who's who when it comes to people who actually know stuff, right? People who actually do get like some amount of insider information, right? I think here on YouTube especially, it's very personality driven and not necessarily like driven by way of like, okay, you're actually like a legitimate, like trained journalist in some respect. You have industry contacts. You have people who will give you information, right? A lot of it is sort of based off of, you know, Are you a cool dude? Are you funny? Do you make like a good analysis video or whatever? You don't necessarily have that sort of like traditional press slew of contacts or whatever, right? I think that's incredibly rare on YouTube because you can't trust YouTubers. Frankly, you can't trust them. Can't trust them. Speaking as a YouTuber, I wouldn't trust a YouTuber. I wouldn't trust them. But regardless, it reminds me of when Fallout 4 came out, and there was like a slew of people or before Fallout 4 came out, and there was a slew of people sort of propagating a whole bunch of fake leaks and information. There were like no shortage of fake websites set up that seemed as if they were going to be some sort of big Fallout 4 reveal. I think there was also something similar to do on a much smaller scale with a Fallout 3 remaster or remake, which we'll get to later. But all of that's to say, eventually there were real things that came out, right? There was sort of the now infamous situation where the esteemed Jason Schreier, right? Perhaps you have heard of his work, leaked out a lot of the opening script as it was planned for Fallout 4. And a ton of those details were 100% correct, and this was sort of like his big breakout moment as far as I'm concerned. Sure enough, he had other stuff, but this was really it that got him on my radar. But around that, there were other people sort of like making up fake stuff, right? And this sort of, what I mean to say is, events like this should teach us to like, I don't know, separate the chaff, right? As it were, sort of acknowledge like, okay, this is the real deal. This is from a trusted source that has been correct in the past. This is from someone who is claiming that they know information, but maybe they don't. This is from someone who is extremely personality driven and maybe doesn't know jack, right? I think that's a lot of stuff to take into account, and I'm sure this will happen again in the future, even specifically when it comes to Elder Scrolls or BGS games as a whole, because they're pretty popular still to this day. There's a lot of hubbub around them. For all that's happened, right? But nonetheless, we're here on Virtuos, right? Their website recently. They slipped up a little bit. They slipped up, and some images, some information got out on their website. Got out a little bit earlier, and wow, it sure looks official. It sure seems like we're due for some type of shadow drop in maybe a week's time. I believe Jeff Grubb said the week of April the 21st, there will be some sort of shadow drop, right? So anytime within that span of 7 days, right? Not necessarily the 21st, but sometime around there is the current situation. At minimum, April, right? But so far, that seems to be the plan. Anyway, let's look at these images, right, that sort of came out of their official website. This isn't someone who on the dev team leaked it out, in which case I would feel maybe a little bit regretful about it. It was whoever was running the website accidentally got them up there a little too early, so I don't feel too bad. Plus, everybody's talking about him, right? What are you going to do, get everybody? Blacklist us all? Come on. Anyway, let me swap over here to picture-in-picture mode if I can. There we are. We got there. Look at that. All right. So, like I said, this is stuff from their website, right? This is stuff from their website, which is no longer there, right? People like dug into it and found it there, sort of popped up ahead of time. So, if you look now, it's hidden. You don't have access to it. But, of course, people scoured and saved it all. But there it is. Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered. A lot of folks still are sort of trapped in this like ignorance loop, this misinformation loop, where they continually think that this is developed by BGS, by Bethesda Game Studios. I mean, at this point, we're talking folks who cannot separate, who think that like Bethesda Publishing is equivocal to Bethesda Game Studios, right? Like at this point, We're talking folks who think that, like, the same people who made Skyrim made Doom Eternal. You know, like, what are we doing? What are we doing if you're on this wavelength of understanding the situation? This is not the case. They are a publisher, or they were at least, right? I guess technically they still have some publishing stuff going on there, right? Even though they've been bought out by Microsoft. Regardless, that's neither here nor there. This by Virtuos, right? Specifically, as far as we know, primarily, their team's set up in France, but we don't know for certain, because they are, as it turns out, they're significantly larger than BGS. Virtuos, having looked up into them, looked up information on them, their staff size massively eclipses BGS, even BGS as around the time of Starfield coming out, right? They work on a ton of different projects. They do a bunch of stuff like this. Like I said, last I heard, it was their France, their Paris, France, sort of division, but likely of with a project this scale, I could very easily see there being a lot more involved than just Paris, France. Anyway, let me make sure I'm clicked in here properly. There's more of the splash screen. You can already see, like we had mentioned before in the past video about expectations for this, the aesthetic is looking a bit different, right? So here's a big comparison video, or not video, but comparison screenshots from the 2006 version of Oblivion, which to me it does look like the PC version with everything set to max. And here's 2025 on the right. Here, I'll zoom in, right? So here we have stuff on the left as we know it and love it. And then here, sort of on the right here, I'll even hide myself. Let's see here. Or I'll move myself over to this side temporarily. There we go. Apologies. So here we go. We've got these Spriggans. Very clearly, they look very different, right? The Spriggan looks super duper different, right? It looks like a different person altogether. It doesn't look like the Spriggans as we know them, as far as I can think of, in any of the games, right? They do have a bit more of the, like, humanistic features for their faces, right? Right? They still look kind of vaguely humanoid compared to how they appear in Skyrim land, where they look way more tree-like, you know? But it is unmistakable that the aesthetic of it is very different. Like, even the haircut, as we can see, the haircut on the two of them is super different. However, the environment looks fairly faithful, right? The one thing I will say, though, and we sort of talked about this in the past, in a past video, is sort of the color, right? Sort of the softness that exists in Oblivion is not present here, right? It does sort of evoke that sort of project that you would hear about every now and again of people talking about, like, oh yeah, I made this game in UE5, right? It does kind of evoke that in some ways, for better or worse, right? I think that you could make a case for, like, I don't like this, right? I think you could make a case for it. Which in many ways is kind of sad, right? It's kind of sad that it doesn't quite, aesthetically speaking, it is different, right? It is different. But I will say, playing on PC, I like this a lot. Playing on PC, I like the idea that it does look different, right? I like the idea that I still have access, if I want to play the original release of Oblivion, right? That will, as far as I know, continue to get modding work. We don't yet know how locked down modding will be for this remaster, as we've talked about in the past. But you can still go back and play the 2006 sort of version of Oblivion, right? At least on PC, that's still very readily available and very much playable. So speaking as from sort of a position of privilege, I guess, I don't mind it so much. I like that there's a different flavor, right? That it's familiar but different, right? Over here, this is a very big difference, but I think that this is partly to do with the time of day. Here's sort of, I forget the name of it, but this is sort of the first dungeon that you see upon coming out of the Imperial Sewer from the tutorial, like prologue stuff. Right? It is significantly more like brown and sepia toned. Right? Aesthetically speaking, it looks extremely different. Right? Just with regards to like the colors being used, it is so much more brownish sepia that like it looks way more, I guess, Skyrim, right? But even that, I feel like, all right, I'll dial it back a bit. I think the reason for this looking so extremely brown and sepia toned, even compared to up here, because up here, you can see at the Spriggan's legs, there's some good greenery going on, right? There's a decent chunk of greenery. You got the trees and all of that. Sure, not as saturated, not as like filled with like the ridiculous soft bloom that existed in like original Oblivion, but significantly greener than down here. I think that this screenshot looks so brownish, so sepia. I think it looks that way on account of the time of day, right? Notice the shadows and all of that. I think that the color grading of the game is way more liable to change with, like, for instance, the golden hour, right? This looks like sunset, maybe sunrise. I don't know. But that's why I think there's that discrepancy in the color. But you can see also the weapons and stuff. You even hold them a little bit more differently, right? Rather than pointing the sword away from the center of the screen, now you point it toward the center of the screen, which does aesthetically make a lot more sense. Right, but unmistakably, sort of that weird situation in Oblivion is like, it's little things like that that kind of contribute to the heart of what was there in the original release of the game, right? Having stuff that didn't quite make sense, right? Where the sword points away from the center of the screen. It's not a big deal, but it is kind of like another thing that contributes to its silly goofiness, right? Because these days, if you make a first-person game, a lot of times you want to have more stuff angled toward the center where the player is looking, right? Their focal point. It makes a lot of sense to do that. Similarly, we can't quite see it here in the screenshot, but Oblivion was sort of infamous for the weird kung fu grip in first person that your character had on their weapons, right? Here you can't really see it, but it looks almost as if it will be different here, right? It looks almost as if it'll be different. Anyway. Let's move my camera back over as we go to other screenshots and whatnot. But yeah, it does look very different. One of the things as well, when it comes to the Ayleid ruins here, there's a new degree of sharpness to everything, right? Whereas, and you can see it present in the docks, in the pier, and even in the little like skiff, the little rowboat here that's sort of like docked or whatever, or I don't know, defunct. You can see that there's a certain amount of sharpness to everything, right? Whereas Oblivion, for better or worse, but true to its soul, had a certain softness about everything, right? Everything felt way softer. And I think the best example is like in the arch of the Ayleid ruins there, you can see it's super duper soft, right? Also adding to that degree of softness is like the color grading on everything, right? There's a certain softness there that's present in the original that isn't there in the sort of remaster. The arch itself is pointed. Everything had this sort of like ever-present, perhaps too strong bloom effect. Right? Very wild. But here in the remaster, it is not present, right? It is a lot more sharp. Everything's a lot sharper, a lot crisper, right? As well, you can see in the back, the draw distance, In this one, you can see one of the sort of famous old abandoned towers, right, that dot the landscape. Whereas in the original, I assume due to draw distance, you can't see it there, right? Hasn't quite yet rendered in. And there's a statue as well right there, right below my camera. Very fascinating stuff. Anyway, let's move on from this one. I don't think there's any other real big major comparison shots. This, I'm not sure if this is in-game or if this is the opening cinematic, right? But you can sort of see Aurora Borealis over there at the border of Skyrim, right? Very cool, very neat. Once again, color grading looking very different. Now, for some of these shots, these are used for different parts of the website. Like I said, these were all things that people mined from different parts of the website and all of that. So some of them were meant to be like background images and weren't meant to be like, oh, this is in the media section of our website where we're just like showing off the game itself, right? This is like, oh, this is the background splash where we're going to have a whole bunch of text in front of it, right? It's just sort of like decorating there, right? So, you know, take a lot of it with a grain of salt, and some of it I've had to like dial up the brightness and gamma and whatnot, tinker around with that to just make it even more legible, right? But this, I'm not sure if this is actually from the opening cinematic or if this is meant to be like mimicking that, right? Either way, what's up there? Is that the like DLC observatory tower thing, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? The one from one of the Oblivion DLCs, the like mage tower. Is that it up there that's visible? I don't know. Regardless, you can see the lighting way more wild. The golden hour truly hitting upon the white gold of the Imperial City. We'll check out the next one. This, I believe this is Anvil, right? Is this not Anvil? I'm pretty sure this is. Right, yeah, there's the mermaid statue, I think it is. Right, is it a mermaid? I forget. I think it is. But yeah, I'm like 90% sure this is Anvil. This looks super, I don't know, correct. Even out by Anvil, you would expect a lot more like gold and brown in the grass. So out here, it's super fitting. It makes a lot of sense. Right? It looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. You know? Gotta be said. Here, this sort of, I think, goes hand in hand with what I was mentioning earlier with regards to that one comparison shot looking very brown and sepia. This is clearly coming from the Imperial sewers. Here we get a lot of that, like, I don't know, iconic Oblivion lush greenery, you know? Loads more detail, loads more sharpness, right? Unmistakably, it is a lot less soft, like the original game was. But you can see, I think this is a good case to be made for the fact that the game can get a lot more green, you know? Like it's capable of looking way more like verdant. And that a lot of what we saw was just owed to the fact that it was a particular time of day, right? I would assume that this might be the one where you come out of it at the start of the game, but I don't think so. I feel like everything back here is incorrect. I think this is a different entry point to the Imperial sewers, right? I feel like this is not correct for the sewer gate that you come out of at the start of the game. You know, I think this is a different one. Maybe, but I think this is different. Anyway, super cool. Here's an interior, right? We can see already things are not floating, right? Things are not floating. One thing that I'm very curious about is how is physics going to be rendered in all of that, right? Is it still going to be kind of weird and very Oblivion-esque, right? How are they going to manage that? As far as we know, it is, when it comes to this remaster, they sort of, as far as we know, original Oblivion is still running underneath, right? So it could be that you could toggle between them, sort of in like Master Chief Collection style. I don't know. But maybe all the physics and stuff that we know and love still exists today, right? True enough, the placement and setting of everything, it does make it feel like that is the case. But as you can see, it looks a lot less soft comparatively. We're leaning a lot more into like earth tones and all of that. What I will say is with the painting, I think that's original Oblivion right there in the painting, right? All of the artwork. I think that's original stuff from the core game, non-remaster, right? Super fascinating. All right, let's check another one. Now this looks dope as hell. I feel like they knocked it out of the park. One of the Oblivion gates here. I think this is just like a rando one, perhaps. Either way, you can now actually see inside a bit, right? You can see a bit of something in there, right? Through the portcullis, the portal itself. Very cool. You get like the change of the skybox as well. We'll see a little bit more of the skybox looking cool. We already saw some of the Aurora Borealis coming down from like the Skyrim border, which looks super duper cool at night or morning whenever it catches. But here, this looks rad as hell. Lot of particle effects and stuff flying off of it. It looks amazing, right? It looks amazing. Like I said, I don't mind all the changes given the fact that I still have access to that original Oblivion, right? This is just like another way to play, and another way which I am going to play, not unlike the famed full conversion mod Sky Oblivion itself, right? Which I will also play in the channel, right? Which will presumptively look different from this as well, right? They will all have their own sort of soul to them, which I do think I prefer, right? Anyway, here's some more. I think this is at Skingrad. Is it not? Yeah, this is Castle Skingrad. Yeah, you've got the banners up there with the red moons, right? Armor looking very wild. I'm not sure what armor this is. I'm very curious how aesthetically different this will be. Right, I can't remember right off the top of my head what armor this is at all. The bow looks very ebony. Is this ebony armor? Yeah, I don't really know what kind of armor this is. Is this like new armor? The bow and the quiver look very ebony, but the rest of it, I don't know. The gobbo's looking very different to me, right? Way less green and all of that. Right? Very fascinating. Still, like I said, looks really good. Looks really good. Doesn't look like Oblivion to me. It feels like an unfamiliar version of it, like I'm visiting a mirror universe or whatever of the Oblivion that I sort of know and love. Right? I'm so curious how the rest of it will hit because of this. Right? Like, will the voice acting and all of that clash with a more realistic take on everything? Because everything sort of feels very cohesive and feels kind of like whimsical and goofy in Oblivion. But if there's stuff that gets left behind, because obviously they couldn't, like, if it is a remaster, I presume all of the voice acting in all of its glory will be present, as it was in Oblivion. Like, the iconic voice work will still be there. Will it clash against this newly, like, redone rest of the world? I wonder. Also, who in their right mind is taking goblins up here, right? The chance that you fight goblins here, I feel like is super slim, right? By the time they get there, usually the guards are right on top of them too. Now here's one where I had to, we're getting into ones where I had to change around the like gamma and all of that. Like I said, there would be some that are like background splashes and stuff. You would have text superimposed over the top. This is one of them, kind of by the Imperial City, and here's like, I believe the Arcane University right there, right? Very good. You can see as well, like I said, although it's discolored in a weird way, you can sort of see that like telltale Oblivion verdant lushness, right? That the original game is sort of famous for in a way. You can see it coming out here and there. Like I said, I think time of day will drastically change how the world appears. Here's another one. I had to dial it up. This is an interior, right? I'm not sure if I remember exactly where this is. This might be the tutorial dungeon, right? This might be where gobos come pouring out of. I'm not sure. Either that or it could be like Fighters Guild quest arc. Not sure. But you can see, for instance, on these doodads in the world, they do look a little bit more defined. They don't look quite as soft, right? Like we had mentioned, Oblivion had softness kind of applied to damn near everything. Right? You can still kind of see it on the bricks here, but really where it comes through is like on the wood, on the barrel, on the crate. But I think on the bricks, it actually does still look quite soft on the edges of these this brickwork. Yeah, that actually looks remarkably familiar. Yeah. Yeah, so maybe the softness is still present in some places, right? It may be also owed to the fact that there might be less bloom. Here, once again, I think this is Anvil once more, right? I'm almost positive, right? These are the guilds, or at least there's the Fighters Guild. I forget what building this is. I think that's Mage's Guild. But yeah, this is Anvil, absolutely. Once again, I had to dial around and change the, what do you call it? The gamma on this. It looks very good. I'm surprised at how much of Anvil we're getting, right? Where's like Chadenhall, Breville, Bruma, all stuff like that, you know? Anvil is very cool, but I don't know if it's my absolute favorite. I do kind of love the rinky-dinkiness of Breville and Chadenhall, of course, being close to Morrowind. I do kind of enjoy that, though it does scarcely look like Morrowind. But I do like the look of it. Here's another one. This is the same sort of early dungeon that you see upon coming out of the Imperial sewers, except at night, right? It is aglow. The, like, Welkin stones, I believe they're called. I forget. Sort of glowing. The ruins, the Ayleid ruins, parts of the ruins themselves are aglow. Right? You can see a lot more, although it's at night, you can see a lot more of the lush, vibrant verdantness that we're accustomed to coming through here. Like I said, I think it's time of day for real. The skybox looking spectacular. Here, I'll move my camera a bit. Yeah, you can see up there the skybox looking fantastic. Aurora Borealis coming through right there, where we're bordering with Skyrim. Looks amazing, honestly. This looks way, like, super duper good, even for it being like a background splash where I had to, like, edit the image a bit to get it to come through, right? It still looks amazing to me. Like, this might be my favorite of it, right? Seeing it at night, everything lit up like that. This, just some, like, worthless, you know, Fires of Oblivion or whatever. This, once again, another splash. Here we have Oblivion Remastered Deluxe Edition. Right? I don't know if we fully know exactly what we get in every version of it, right? I don't know. I heard some people saying that they're pretty sure, like, the deluxe edition of the remaster has, like, horse armor or whatever, right? I don't know. Regardless, for me, of course I'm obscenely biased. I'm going to get the edition that comes with the most stuff, right? Don't take that into account for your own purchasing decisions. Just account for the fact that, like, I'm a freak. Here, of course, this is one that's super, super duper low res, right? It looks like there's some form of horse armor or whatever, different weapon pack, right? Maybe stuff to evoke, like, other games. I cannot tell. I can't tell at all. But as well over here, I'll move my camera again. It's hard to make out what the hell this is, right? But the deluxe edition, some type of horse armor. This is very clearly, let's see, right here. I'll move myself down here. This image right here, this is the DLC, right? This, I can't even make them out, but I can tell by silhouette alone, right? Every true Elder Scrolls lover among us can tell you, right here, this is Knights of the Nine armor, and right here on the right, to the right of it, this is Sheogorath doing his iconic laughing at you with arms wide open, like, pose, right? That's what that is. It's unmistakable. What are these things? Here to the right? I couldn't tell you. Let's see. I couldn't tell you what these are. This stuff? I don't know. This is some type of horse armor. Looks like elven horse armor. But otherwise, I don't know. Yeah. Very wild. This armor right here almost like looks like it's meant to evoke Mehrunes Dagon. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, this horse armor looks like Daedric, and this maybe like, what's the name of that ultimately disappointing set of armor you get at the end of the main quest line? I think that these weapons and this horse armor is meant to evoke that, but I'm not sure. Regardless, we see markings here for Xbox Game Pass, I think, Xbox whatever, PC game, right? I would assume that a year down the line, right, this will also come to Sony PlayStation and possibly even Switch 2, right? I would assume that about a year from now, we will see it on other consoles, right? Potentially Switch 2, right? If they can get some version of Cyberpunk 2077 running on the Switch 2, I bet the work will be done for this as well. Let's see. And that's the end of our little tour here of these screenshots. But sort of alluding to stuff future down the line, if we look at those leaked court documents, I think it's a safe assumption to make that Fallout 3 remaster is also going to happen. How far removed will it be from this? I think it was in that original timeline. Here, I'll swap back to just me. I think it was in that original timeline, in the court docs and all of that. I think it was shown that it was about a year, maybe more, between the Oblivion remaster and a Fallout 3 one. And as I have personally been on the record as like another believer, I think New Vegas remaster is also going to happen, right? From this same team in this same vein, right? They own all of the involved parties from that remaster. Microsoft owns them, I should say. I think it's going to happen. It uses the same root engine that Oblivion and Fallout 3 are running off of. I think it's a given. If they did it here, it will happen again. But yeah, Fallout 3, how long will it be off? If I had to guess, the Fallout 3 remaster, they probably really want to time it to come out around the same time as the Fallout TV show Season 2, right? Because last time it came out, that TV show Season 1 did, and even though they didn't have a Fallout game to accompany it, they saw sales like skyrocket for absolutely everything, right? From Fallout 76 to CRPG Fallouts, everything went up in popularity. Everybody was getting into Fallout of all kind when Season 1 of the show hit. I assume that they will want to try and strategically time it. I couldn't see them aiming for Season 3 because of the TV show, because that feels like it's several years away now. But we do know that Season 2 is filming right now, so it could come out sometime next year. Maybe this year, but I doubt it. So yeah, I could see it work out that way. And like I said, I would almost certainly, I think it's reasonable to think that if Oblivion gets a remaster, if Fallout 3 gets a remaster, New Vegas will probably get one too. It may take a little bit longer, but I bet it will happen. Right? It's mostly timelines are the question, right? Anyway, that ought to do it for this week. A bit of an impromptu, excited IRL video. Looking forward to it. Like I said, for the channel, we are actually nearing the end of a lot of different playthroughs, right? We're getting kind of near to the end. So I don't mind squeezing Oblivion in there, and then sort of as playthroughs wind down, Oblivion takes their place, right? I'm very much looking forward to it. Apologies. I'm super duper excited for it. All right. That ought to do it for now. Until next time, please take care of each other.